Right, so what I'm going to do now is hand over to our guests Kate and Sam from Just Straight Talk to get the session underway. Over to you guys.
Hi there, good morning. Thank you very much, Debbie. My name's Kate Beale, the project manager and founder at Just Straight Talk.
And I'm Sam, and I work at JST as a Bridges Connector.
Okay, so Just Straight Talk was set up in October 2012 with the aim of improving lives. The mission statement is to encourage and empower people to build better lives within the communities where they live. We support people over the last 10 years. We've supported thousands of people with complex needs and barriers, such as mental ill health, physical health issues, confidence and self-esteem issues, people that were vulnerably housed, people that live in poverty, disadvantage and distress, groups and demographics of people that are marginalised, who are often more pushed back in society, who are further from the labour market and further from gaining opportunities into employment, training and education. It may be people that face health inequalities or other demographic inequalities that we work for to help to increase their overall opportunity in life and help to move them forward. And our 4 ways of doing that are by advocating, by supporting, by mentoring, and by helping them feel more empowered. Just Straight Talk, JST, understands how playing an active part in the community as individuals or in groups can benefit well-being, and we have various projects aimed specifically at pairing up people of any age to activities and interventions that will help to reduce loneliness and isolation. JST also provides individual support for people facing a range of issues or who are in difficult situations at point of referral by working both one-to-one and in groups. We work with people to identify and address these barriers by developing coping skills and strategies, improving confidence and well-being, and increase employment opportunities and improve digital inclusion. Whilst working with people to address their issues and barriers, JST actively supports people to become stronger, more confident, and gain control over their own lives. On the next slide, I'll be looking at our projects that we actually have and have developed over the last 10 years. In and around the Black Country, we have multiple projects that cover all age groups, demographics, and all areas that we've addressed. I'm going to start, I think, with our Dudley Council local authority work, which is where we started 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we started with a young person's floating support project, which we still have today, which is working with young people in Dudley that are vulnerably housed, sofa surfing, in very difficult situations due to family relationships and breakdowns. Many will be care leavers, and those that maybe have some chaotic upbringings and disadvantages throughout their childhood. And that project seeks to explore opportunities into stable accommodation for young people, help them move forward in their first steps into supported living or into council or private rented or other accommodation. It then helps to move them on to employment, training and education. Throughout the council and local authority, we also have a carers specific project looking to address the needs specifically of the carer, not the cared for person, looking and working holistically with the carer around a package of support to help them to access a brighter future. Many carers are most disadvantaged, especially through the pandemic, due to living in the home with the person they're caring for. It means there's very little opportunity to explore options for themselves. We've also sadly had in the last couple of years, due to COVID and the pandemic, many carers who have been bereaved due to losing the person that they were caring for. So that project is about working longer term with carers to explore what their goals are in life and help them to reach and realise that those goals can be met, and we're really making inroads with carers and exploring those options for them for the future, whilst always taking some carers onto our Digi Dudley project as buddies. Our Digi Dudley project, you'll see a picture of Chris on the far right, who's working with a group of people that are digitally excluded for multiple reasons, whether that be due to poverty or the fact that they can't afford tablets, or that there's data issues and data poverty, or whether or not that it's because they haven't got the confidence, skills, and the necessary education to be able to use the devices, which usually starts with confidence, isn't it? Tablets and devices. I think that we all find one way or the other we're IT challenged. Imagine never ever having gone onto the internet or in having access to a device. So we've got the first Dudley loan scheme of devices and equipment and the individuals to work holistically with older people and carers, not only to access the equipment, but to long-term support with the troubleshooting and to help access FaceTime, WhatsApp calls, online shopping, doctors and medical appointments, and much, much more. And that's one of our newest projects, DigiDudley. I'm going to move to the left-hand side. You'll see Dave and Shona with one of your colleagues at the West Brom, at the Sedgley branch of Mid Counties Co-op. And the Pom Poms for Loneliness project supports people that are very lonely and isolated through the method of a pom-pom. So the pom-pom message gets spread across the community, and we know that that pom-pom can reach many, many, many more people than we will be able to, and people then use that pom-pom as a symbol to spread that message with others. Each pom-pom holds a message on there with contact numbers so that people can get involved and connect to their local community. Pom-poms do coffee mornings, park walks, men's groups, snooker groups, arts and crafts groups, some still online, but many of those groups now entering back into face-to-face in a safe and comfortable settings across the Black Country. So to the left of Pom-Poms, we've got Black Country Futures logo, which is the tree there. Our Black Country Futures project works holistically with age 16 to no upper age limit, and it's around looking at futures for people around employment opportunities, volunteering, working with other groups, befriending, confidence building, housing, health, benefits, and really moving people from a place that they're in at the moment in chaos or distress into a much better position over the course of 2 years, and that's lottery funded. Moving to the left again, we've got our Bridges project, which is working holistically with those individuals that are 25 plus, that are marginalised and are more pushed further away from the employment market, or even economically inactive due to a multitude of reasons. They won't need to job search from the job centre at that point, because they have been told that their issues are as such that they're not quite ready. So our role is to get them to the point of readiness, of wanting to look at work in the more medium term, and supporting them with the multitude of barriers that they have. Those relationships on Bridges could be 2 years, 3 years even, until somebody then moves into employment training and education. But believe me, they do. In the last couple of weeks, solely on this one project, we've had 6 or 7 people moving into employment, and I'm going to give you some more information about that in a bit. Above the Bridges and the BCF logo, you'll see Coffee at the Clock, a new initiative from JST. We have a coffee shop in West Brom. Please come and use it. It's in Carter's Green, right outside the clock. The name gives it away, and it's affordable lunches, breakfast, snacks, cakes, and meals for people, but it's also in a very comfortable, safe, airy setting. It's very light, it's very bright, lots of ventilation. It's actually in a 3-storey hostel, but you'd never know it. And lots of community groups and individuals are utilising Coffee at the Clock to come in and feel like there's a friendly approach, making new friendships whilst having some good quality coffee and food. Above that, on the left hand side, we've got Talent Match, which is our mentoring project for young people aged 17 to 29. So if they get to 29 and 30, we can then look at bringing them onto the Bridges project if they still need support thereafter. Talent Match is mentoring. It's absolutely fantastic because it's a long-term mentoring project for 7 thematic groups. The thematic groups within Talent Match may be learning difficulties, ex-offenders, those with low confidence, care leavers, homelessness, LD features quite big within all of the work that we do, which is people with learning difficulties and special educational needs. And then you've got the East Coast Big Local, which is the Pom Pom project. Right to the far hand side, you'll see a logo that says Links Together. Links Together is our Brierley Hill only DY5 specific saturated targeted group. So we're looking at going into neighbourhoods and we're doing targeted events within the DY5 area. DY5 Horbush, Brierley Hill is a very, very deprived area, and it's been really pinpointed as an area that we need to do a lot of movement, a lot of work in, and real target individuals within and residents within those areas, which is why we're putting on lots of Halloween events, Christmas events, pantos, to really work with engaging parents and carers and supporting them for the long term around employability, because Brierley Hill will be linked to Birmingham with the metro, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities coming to that area when the metro stop opens, and work is happening up that at the moment. So that's our projects. So we take referrals from agencies, all sorts of agencies, statutory, non-statutory and self-referrals, and all of the team, of which there's 25 of them. You're meeting Sam today. They're all amazing, just like Sam. They all carry caseloads. So they could be working with 20, 30, 40, 50 people at any one time, dependent on if they're working solely with one-to-ones or if they're working with one-to-ones and groups. You name it, we'll take a referral from you, whoever you are. We don't say no. Some of the projects do have eligibility criteria. So, for example, for bridges, you've got to be out of work. But for some of our other projects that are more flexibilities, for example, Black Country Futures, you can be on a 0 hours contract. So we can work with people and we don't say no. So some of them are more generic, but we will find a project to fit everybody into, or at least an activity or intervention. But we also rely on lots of partnership working. So we've got lots of partners within the local area that we can talk to make sure that one way or the other you're supported. We Dare to Care. The team are so dedicated. I could talk to you all day about my team and how amazing they are. I often have a job reining the team in. I've got staff asking me if they can drop off Christmas dinners on Christmas Day, and I don't rein that in, of course not. But of course we do have to be careful not to build up too much dependency with people we support, because we are so amazing that will happen. So yeah, we often have conversations about the work that we do and how far we go, and that's where I support the team at one-to-ones, and it's all about moving people forward into being more dependent for themselves and independent for themselves. But going the extra mile isn't an understatement in what we do. We do that every day, and there's a load of passion here at JST. It would be great if you wanted to come into the organisation at any one time and come and see what we do. But over to the next slide, and let's have a look at what we're here to discuss today, which is financial hardship, homelessness, the state of the nation right now. It's been a real tough couple of years for people. We rely heavily on the fundraising support that you provide to support us, to support people within the communities that are really in despair and distress. But we all know it's going to be a very, very difficult winter. At JST, we understand how difficult these challenges are. We understand how much worse they're going to get this winter for people already in financial hardship and distress. But we have a great team full of incredibly knowledgeable and resourceful individuals that are skilled with the techniques and resources to help steer people out of poverty and distress, to help them to maximise their income, reduce their outgoings, and maximise their benefits. I'm going to come on to some of the solutions in a minute, but really about helping to release people out of homelessness into stable accommodation for the first time or the second time or the third time, whatever their situation might be. But for the long term, this is not short-term solutions here. It is the long term. We know that incomes are falling. We know that people are facing the reduction in £20 of their universal credit. We know furloughs come to an end, move to more increased unemployment. Times are going to be tough for us, even as working people. But for people that are trying to get their foot on the ladder and trying to get back into employment, that are in debt, they are so much more faced with that adversity, and it's going to be so much more difficult. We all know it's easy to get into situations of debt and hardship, but so hard to get out of those situations. Costs are rising, dramatic rise in energy prices. It's a worry for all of us, and increasing cost of food and travel. Everything's going up in value. We know that. There's going to be the end to the remortgage payment holidays that there was a relaxation on due to the pandemic. Eviction bans are now lifted, and enforcement officers and bailiffs are now allowed back in to visit into homes to go and do home visits, and that nothing will stop them from doing that. So we know that this really has affected many people we support. Sam, individuals on your caseload have been affected by the UC decrease and falling, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Especially when you're looking at single parents as well, and that £20 a week, it might not sound a lot to everyone, but it is, you know, it's the difference between eating every day and not, for some of our participants. So especially when they're taking that £20 away at the same time as all the costs rising and the energy prices are rising. I've been told by a number of participants that their energy bills have gone up, you know, 20, 30, 40 pounds, and they're having that £80 taken away, and they are saying to me, I don't know how I'm going to get my shopping in next week. And they're trying to re-budget, and you're looking at what they earn and their outgoings, and it's just impossible not to fall into debt.
We've got a video that highlights this from one of our team, and this is Chris, who works in our Sandwell office.
Hello, my name is Chris Jones. I work for Just Straight Talk on the BBO Bridges project here in Sandwell. We do a lot of work around building sustainable bridges into employment. Sometimes we have to work a lot with people who are suffering with really in-depth, complex, multiple barriers, including financial hardship and homelessness. I currently have probably about 3 or 4 people I'm working with at the moment that are going through extreme poverty and homelessness. What we do to support people with that is break down those barriers into smaller bite-sized pieces where we can work with people to overcome those barriers. I'd also like to share a story about homelessness and financial hardship that I've interacted with today. I had a phone call last night from one of my participants to say that he's been thrown out onto the street. To take immediate action, he was at his nan's property. I phoned up the family, spoke to them and bartered a couple more nights on the sofa. The next action that we took was to start searching around, register the homelessness with the council and try and find somewhere for him to have a bed that's more sustainable, that can help this lad get back on his feet and start working towards a sustainable future. Within half a day, we've managed to find a roof over his head, some financial support to manage to help him to travel to different locations so he can be more independent and start building upon the journey that we've already started. Hello, my name is Jones.
So that was an example really of what we face every day with our participants, and it's about taking that immediate action, and it's that hand-holding approach that we give all of our participants to make sure that, you know, they are getting housed if they need it, they are getting food if they need it, and because all of this is going to lead to sustainable employment in the future, and without feeling secure and safe with permanent accommodation, it's very difficult to find work and sustain work for the future as well.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sam. So moving on to poverty and homelessness and how this affects people. I've got a story, a case study I'm just going to read with you, or go over with you in a moment. Sam, over to you.
Yeah, that was just talking about Chris's video there, Kate.
Yeah, thank you for that, Sam. Okay, so poverty and homelessness. I've got an example here where we were working with someone who really sticks out to me. Her worker, Stacey, provided support for about 2.5 years, and Emma's story is quite powerful, and it sticks out for many reasons. I met Emma multiple times, because Stacey used to say to me, Kate, for the first half an hour, anything up to half an hour, every time I see her, all she does is cry. She literally cannot stop the emotion. So I went out to meet Emma in a hostel with Stacey after Stacey had supported her out of a women's refuge into the hostel. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her story now. And it also proves that it can happen to any of us. Emma was well educated. She had a desire to be a social worker and was actually doing a degree, went on to university to work with families in social work herself. Unfortunately, though, whilst doing her degree, she got into a relationship that became abusive, mentally, coercive control, manipulation, which then became physical and violent. it affected her so much it meant that she dropped out of university. She went on to have 3 children though with this partner. Whilst in the relationship, she then suffered depression, which affected every part of her life and increased her anxiety. She stopped eating and began drinking, and it affected her mental and physical health, and she went on to 46 drinks. Because she was drinking and he was going out to work, she stopped taking the children to school, so social services were involved, which then meant she went into it came to a head, and she ended up getting sectioned into Bushyfields Hospital for support due to her mental health at the time, which was so unstable. Emma came out of Bushyfields and went straight into a women's refuge, wasn't able to see the children because they're not allowed into the women's refuge, and he at the time had full custody of the children. She stayed at the women's refuge, and a court order was then in place that she could see the children, but not in the refuge and not in the property there with the ex-partner. So we then moved her into a hostel accommodation, supported accommodation, so that bit by bit things were moving in the right direction. However, she still couldn't see the children at the accommodation, and she was using all of her benefits every week. So the 70, 80 pounds she was getting in universal credit. The only place social services would allow her to see the children was at her sister's, which was outside of the West Midlands in Leicester. So she used all of her benefits every week to take the children to this property so that she could spend the day or spend her time with her children outside of area. It was a really, really difficult time. We found further ways to, because she wasn't allowed to let them into the hostel, we found got further support to seek further accommodation for her outside of the women's refuge, where Emma could feel safe and start to build her own home, whilst looking at other housing options and supporting her both physically, mentally and emotionally. With some encouragement and reassurance, she took the right steps with us and went to visit her GP and got on some antidepressants, and on a regular basis started engaging and interacting with services. Her teeth were in a bad way, and the JST worker also took her to the dentist on multiple occasions, which was always a massive, massive, scary step for Emma, and she started to get her wellbeing back on track. We got her onto wellbeing women's courses, and she tried to improve and engage to improve her confidence and self-esteem, and started to meet new people in the community. Since November, she started to feel more confident and positive about her future, and we got her into her own place not far from here in Gornal. She's expressed that she believes that the past is now in the past. She's moved out of the hostel into her own accommodation, and she has recently been successful through our intervention with starting an apprenticeship in admin at a local hospital. And that's a fantastic outcome for her. She's feeling much better mentally, and she's in a place that she can move on and move forward. She sees the children a lot, and we're now looking at continuing to support her with her debts and some of the finances. I think the thing that stands out really, the crying at every appointment for so long, but over the Christmas she didn't have any money to get the children in Christmas presents. So we actually, with an intervention that we have locally within the community and voluntary sector, took her to a Santa's workshop, and lots of places donate toys and lots of benefactors give money in. And we also took her to one of those places that she was able to pick up toys for the kids and make sure that her children had presents that Christmas, and a real positive outcome there with Emma. And we're still in touch with her, and she's doing really well. Another one of Chris's was caring for family members, and unfortunately was living with someone she was caring for that then passed away. And this individual and her 2 sons were then found homeless. Her 2 sons have autism, and they ended up in Birmingham in a hotel, and within a different local authority altogether. Started in Dudley, then had to go to Walsall for immediate accommodation, and was then moved to Dudley. That blocked the family from accessing vital support from health and family and financial. In severe poverty, we then supported the family to access their entitled support via benefits because they weren't on the right benefit at all. We advocated them for a move to more suitable temporary accommodation out of this hotel into more suitable accommodation, and explored numerous other routes to relieve the family from living below the poverty line because there were mice in the first hotel that they were living in, enabling them to access vital services for their children. The individual is still suffering from mental health issues, but we're currently looking into more permanent support and accommodation. We're looking at financial and debt breaks to enable them to become financially stable, whilst advocating with their local authority around the debts that were accrued due to errors and poor practice from that local authority. I don't know if you know, but if you've got some rent arrears and it's over £250, then you cannot go on the waiting list at all. So if your rent arrears is £280, £270, you can't go on the rent arrears until they're below 250. Sam's got some more statistics from you before we start looking at solutions. Over to you, Sam.
So there is 1.6 trillion pounds worth of personal debt in the UK. It's just staggering, really, isn't it? And for every one person who asks for help with debt, there are 7 others that don't, and they just continue to struggle through. 19.7% of working adults in Dudley are in debt, and they can't meet their monthly commitments. They have problems with all kinds of debt and missing payments, and that obviously has a negative effect on their mental health as well, which we'll talk about in a little while. And it's estimated that 1 in 4 people live in poverty in Dudley, in the area, but we would actually estimate more. The amount of people that we support, that we see on that poverty line, is definitely above 1 in 4 for us.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? This is people that are disclosing this, and actually right now it's going to be worse, absolutely worse than ever. We're also seeing that shift in welfare reform of types of debt. It used to be credit cards or personal loans, overdrafts, but it's now debts for council tax, rent, utilities, threatened with the loss of income, loss of homes, loss of goods. And that is a very real truth. And I think that we've got an example coming up in a minute about somebody that was in that position that now is in a much better position. So on to the next slide, please.
Okay, so here we see that, you know, money and mental health, it definitely goes hand in hand, and people who have mental health issues are 4 times as likely to be in problematic debt that they are struggling to get out of. So you have people with mental health issues that they may be overspending, they may be, you know, just not able to cope with managing their money well, and obviously that gets them into debt, and then the debt then just makes everything worse, and then increases the struggles around mental health because they don't feel like they can get out of it anymore. So that creates anxiety and depression, and you can see it's a catch-22 really, and it's a cycle that a lot of people are really struggling to get out of. And then that's where we can step in and kind of say, look, let's look at your mental health separately, let's get you some therapy, let's talk to your GP, and then on the other side, let's look at your money, let's look at what you've got coming in and what you need to go out, and then let's work out a way to manage that. And we do that by setting up direct debits for people as well, and making things easier to manage, so you don't have to pop out to pay a bill. It's already paid, and we'll work out when the best time for that bill to be paid is for them. We can remind them as well, and when their money is getting a little bit low, we can support them by going and getting a food bank, or using some money that's been donated to us from the co-op, for example, to go and fill up the cupboards, you know, so they haven't got to worry about that, and the bills can still get paid, so they're not feeling that pressure of waiting to pay that bill.
Yeah, we're going to come on to solutions in a minute. I think the interesting factor is the amount of people that we support that have got a mental health and a physical health problem, because they are actually now going hand in hand due to the money and due to the finances, due to the debt, and due to the constant knowing that nothing's ever going to get better. Imagine that. Imagine knowing that actually it's not going to get better long term until maybe some organisation or somebody. Many people we support are on their own. They lack role models. They haven't got family around them to pick them up and help them to do this. They need to get their life back on track, and they come to us, and we, with the solutions that are coming up next, can look at making that happen. But very difficult positions and very complex situations, and those bite-sized chunks that we work with help people to reach their goals. I think we've got a story that highlights the physical and health problems, doesn't it, Sam?
Yeah.
Here's Sarah's story.
Hello, my name is Sarah. I have fibromyalgia and I was homeless for 11 months after leaving a domestic violence relationship. I accessed support from JST via my family worker, who put me in contact with Sam, who has helped me emotionally and helped me apply for grants for for furniture, to help furnish the house. Obviously, I was away from my son for 11 months during the time that I was homeless, which was really difficult. Sam helped me emotionally through that as well. Now that we are settled into the house, I'm looking at going back to work, and JST are continuing to support me in that. Hello, my name.
Okay, so that was Sarah, who I'm currently working with. When she was referred in, I was told that she was homeless. She was living in a friend's one-bedroom flat. The friend would actually slept on a chair for nearly 11 months while she had the bedroom with two of her daughters, and the flat just wasn't big enough to house her son as well, so he had to go and live with her brother, which was, you know, quite a few miles away as well. They've not got their own transport, so it was bus rides to be able to go and see, for him to go and see his mom. And it was really, really difficult for all of them. But because they had a roof over their head as such, it was very difficult for them to find housing for them. It was her mental health and her physical health, obviously, really, you know, it took a hit. It was a struggle for her to be away from her son, but then also it was a struggle for all of her children not having their own space, not having, you know, their own bedrooms, not having secure accommodation, really. And now she has got her own housing. We've supported her through the process of keeping in touch with the council and making sure that everything's been looked at as best as it could. And she's got her own house a couple of months ago now, and she's settled. She's got all the children back living with her, and we were actually able to use some of the co-op money to fund furniture for the whole house. There's a place called Provisions House, and it just charges delivery, but we were able to get sofas, dining tables, beds, wardrobes. I've been able to apply for another grant and get her a washing machine. So yeah, she's really in a better place now, and she's actually going to be able to start thinking about looking for work, because how could she do that before? How can you even think about trying to get a job when you haven't even got, you know, a secure place to live and you don't feel safe? And, you know, so it's really looking up for her.
A good example, a perfect example of Haslow's hierarchy of needs. I don't know if anybody is aware of that model. Fantastic model, very much about the baseline. We need food, warmth, all the way up to, you know, that feeling of self-worth. And you know, many people that we're supporting are at the bottom of that triangle. Have a look at it if you haven't heard of it. Haslow's hierarchy of needs. So solutions, we've mentioned a few, but there are many more solutions that we work with and we do here. A lot of these we couldn't do without the support from Mid-Counties. We thank you so much for not just the guidance and the financial support, but the support further than goes deeper than that. Knowing that you support us in the way that we support others helps us to feel like we're not on our own with this either, and that you believe in us. I've had an email from Mid-Counties in the last week asking, what support they can be to help me apply for future grants and funding, which is fantastic, and I'm taking that forward. But you've provided us thousands of pounds to help us to keep a really healthy and regular welfare pot. But these are our solutions, okay? In the middle there, you'll see a diagram of a leaflet, which is called the Worrying About Money leaflet. This is actually a national leaflet, but it's not in every area yet. It was recently launched in Dudley, and it's Worrying About Money from the Independent Food Aid Network. There are options and choices in here about if you are facing waiting for benefit decisions, my money isn't stretching far enough, I've got debt, or I've suddenly found I've got no money, what you can do to help. And there are a lot of options. This is around less reliance on food banks and a cash first response. Okay, so how to maximize people's income so that they are less and less reliant on food bank, because many people are jumping straight to going to food banks as an immediate response, which is fine, but they are finding, and many people are becoming so dependent on that. We need to look at the real reasons why and get to the bottom of it, and with support, advice and the appropriate guidance, helping the family or the household to have more cash at the end of the month to actually pay their way and actually make it last. So other solutions, check to see if people are claiming any utility reductions that they might be eligible for. So I'm going to name a few: assured tariff, council tax reductions, utility reductions, warm home discounts. We use companies such as Assure, Self-Staffed Charitable Trust, Assure Tariff and Warmer Homes, and Leap Energy Advice. We make referrals to all of those. They take our referrals and they can help people living below the poverty radar with some discounts or some funding towards their bills. For example, we had someone with extreme OCD that couldn't stop washing her hands, and she was on a water meter. So obviously the water company were absolutely sending us bills for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds that were extortionate, that were not in line with anyone else's bills. We contacted them to make them aware of the situation, and they put into place a cap on that, and that really helped. So we make a lot of referrals to these discounted energy advice organisations that provide vouchers for gas and electric. They also can give energy advice in the home to reduce bills, and also that helps the environment overall. So energy consumptions, researching on the internet cheaper deals for people and suppliers due to the rising costs. Next one, maximising benefits. It's amazing the amount of people that are not on the right benefit or are not maximising the benefit correctly. PIP appeals, PIP applications, mandatory reconsiderations, other disability reductions and qualifying reductions, and making sure welfare rights of people are protected and they're getting what they need to get appropriately. My team are incredibly resourceful. Not a week goes by that they have not applied for another grant outside, submitting applications for external grants for people in crisis due to debt or benefit sanctions, and for those that are waiting decisions. They research on a website called Turn to Us that share good practice together. They've built up some trusted relationships with grant makers such as Glasspool Trust, W.E. Dunn, Badley Memorial, Baron Davenport. Special mention to the Vickers Relief as well, who prevent homelessness for those people pending eviction. They can also ensure that somebody that might be going through eviction, we do an application to the Vickers Relief, they will help someone to get to below that £250 threshold, so then we can make an application for housing for them, and we can then get them onto the waiting lists. In-house grants, these are you. We're really fortunate, like I mentioned, to have this funding from you guys at Mid-Counties for an in-house welfare provision grant for emergency fuel, crisis food, furniture delivery charges, clothes, transport costs. I don't know if you noticed, I had to take a call yesterday. I was on the phone to somebody yesterday whilst in a meeting with Debbie and Karen from the Co-op, and it was one of the staff saying someone's got a work trial tonight. He's wanted to work for the last 2.5 years. He's been given an opportunity. If he does the trial tonight, he can start work tomorrow, but he needs boots and high vis. It was £40, right? And my answer was, yes, go and get it, because if he couldn't work and do his trial last night, he wouldn't have got the job that hopefully he's starting today. And these are yes answers, and it's only a yes because Mid-Counties provide us this fundraising support from the wonderful work you do. I'm going to give you a quick example. Someone was paying ahead for school dinners. They needed the school dinners paying for that week. They didn't have enough money for the 5 days for their child at school dinners. They were awaiting their first universal credit payment, which takes up to 5 weeks. The schools were not sympathetic or willing to wait, so we paid that 5 days of the school dinners while that individual was waiting for their benefit payment, which had been delayed to kick in the following week. Debt relief orders, your money is paid for a debt relief order, £90 to completely put the stoppers and the holds on the debt while that person gets their life under order, takes off the whole strain and stress and anxiety. £90 debt relief order is not something that someone in a huge amount of debt is going to afford when the priority is feeding themselves. So that debt relief order means that they're paused, and that then plans can be made for short and smaller payment and bite-sized chunks to be set up for them. Speaking with local authority homeless teams, housing support, speaking directly with landlords, all relating to rent arrears. We do a lot of mediation to help it not to get to crisis point. Budgeting plans, money management, setting up these achievable goals and helping people set up direct debits. Referrals to other specialist debt advice, CAB, for example, that can work alongside us whilst we're working with the individual. But I think the biggest one is the move on. The employment and training, issuing someone a scratch card. That scratch card for £4.40 can mean that someone can get to work for their first week. They're not going to have the money to do that until they get paid. Such as training, job centre appointments, attending sessions for interviews. Employment here is our end goal, which can take a long time, if not years, for some individuals that we've spoken about and that we support. But if we support them for the long term throughout their journey, it does happen. And like I said, we've had 6 outcomes on just one project into employment in the last week or two for people that have wanted that for years. And by breaking down those barriers, they're now finally standing on their own 2 feet and will be coming off benefits and paying their way back into society. And it's not just the impact it has to that person's life, it's the impact to them and their family. We've got a quick video coming up from Lindy, I believe, who works at JST.
Hi, I'm Lindy. I work for Just Straight Talk on the Supporting People project, which works with 16 to 25-year-olds in Dudley. Everybody here at Just Straight Talk would like to say a huge thank you to the Mid-Counties Co-op for all the support that you've given us, especially during this time, during the pandemic. We've been able to make a huge amount of difference to so many young people with the money that you've provided for us. We have helped people in fuel poverty. We have helped people with food shops. We have helped people who are going to be homeless, supported them into accommodation, and been able to pay delivery charges for them to access furniture from local charity shops and small goods such as duvets, sheets, crockery, cutlery, all sorts of those things. We have helped people get birth certificates and bus passes so they can get to training courses. We have helped people buy uniform and shoes so that they can start new jobs. We've even helped somebody who was in a great deal of pain, a young care leaver who was in a great deal of pain, and we got them a TENS machine, which is making a huge difference to their daily life. Without the money that you provide, we would never have been able to do these things. And the staff here at Just Straight Talk would like to say a huge thank you. It makes so much difference to us to be able to meet with a young person who is facing bankruptcy and eviction and be able to say to them that we can pay the fee for the debt relief order that will help them out of that situation. It makes such a difference to not have to wait all that time for something relatively small that can make such a huge difference to a life. So thank you so much from all of us.
There's the lovely Lindy. So working together really, and we really want to thank you for listening today, but a massive thanks for the last few years, all the support from Mid-Counties, working cohesively together. It's wonderful for us to do what we do, but to know that we have the backing and support, it really lifts your shoulders, you know, to know that an organisation, such a cooperative such as yourselves, Mid-Counties, really have got our back as well. And I really want to thank you for listening. Is there any questions today?
Thanks, Kate. We do have some questions from members that weren't able to join us for the session today, if I could put those to you. We have one question that they tend to be more around those people that find themselves homeless. So member is asking, how many facilities or places available in the Black Country do you have?
Okay, for housing, so we are not a housing provider. We make the inroads into housing for individuals happen. I'm not going to say it's easy either. Each of the areas will probably have 2 to 3 hostels in each borough, so you're talking 12, 15, don't count me on this, approximately hostels within the Black Country. So we are based in one of them in Sandwell, and we have an which is the YMCA in Carter's Green, and we also are based in a community outreach in Dudley with Chad, which is a supported accommodation for young people. There's also Saltbrook Place in Lye, which is Midland Heart, and that's a hostel as well, supported accommodation. So each borough would have a healthy number of hostels, but it's about, is there a vacancy on that day, right? And very often, no, there's not. This is not a quick fix housing, and it's not an easy process. It's pretty complex. But what I will say, and this might come on to the next question, I don't know, each local authority has an absolute right to has got to house someone that's homeless, whether it be out of area or whether it be a hotel or a lodgings. There is that promise from the local authority that if someone's homeless, they'll get a bed, but it might not be ideally what that individual wants, and that's what very often happens. It's not what actually they envisaged, and it doesn't actually meet with what they've required that day, because if there's nowhere in Dudley, they'll be passed to Birmingham or Walsall or Sandwell or Wolverhampton. But there are hostels, there are accommodations, but again, it's much more about, is there that bed for that night within that place? If not, they'll be offered somewhere out of borough.
Okay, thank you. That kind of links with a further question asking, are these placements generally just for an overnight accommodation stay, or are there longer term options if they're needed?
Yeah, the offer that's made from the local authority, the one offer that's made, is not just a one night stay. It can be more longer term than that. It is longer term than that, but it's whether or not that individual ideally that's where they want to be. So what our plan is if they're moved out of borough, they've got somewhere, they've got the Haslow's hierarchy of needs is met, isn't it? And then what we would do is we will look at making multiple applications to help them move back to the borough that they want to be in and where they reside. So for example, if that's Dudley but they moved to Birmingham, we will keep in contact and engage them and get them on waiting lists to help them move back. The offer of accommodation, that one offer, no, it's not just one night. It is longer term than that. But what my answer is is that what people always want? Then no. Ideally, they want to be where they want to be, and that's the part that takes a long time. So it's not a quick fix, and it's not perfect or ideal, but someone's off the streets. There are a lot of people that over winter within local authorities go out on homelessness street teams offering beds for the night for homeless people, but for 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 reasons, and we've spoke about this before, there will be reasons why that person doesn't want to. They might have a dog with them and they don't want, there's nowhere for the dog to go. It might not be that they want to go into X, Y or Z place because there's been issues in there in the past for them, but yeah, there are a multitude of places. It's just not going to always be ideal for that individual circumstances or situation.
Okay, thank you. Further question that you did touch on this during the presentation about referrals. But one of the questions we have is, how do you receive them? Is it via specific bodies, social services, or is it that an individual can come to you and say, I need some help?
Yeah, absolutely, both really. We've got quite a thriving website, and people can go on there and just get right in their contact number and name or their contact details, and we can go out and then meet with that individual. We get a lot of referrals from statutory social workers, we get a lot from housing, we get a lot from job centres, a very healthy number from the job centres, but anyone can refer in, pick up the phone or Facebook us, direct message, website, or visit one. We've got an office in Dudley Town, we've got an office in Cosley, and we've got an office in West Brom, but we rely on a lot of community locations and bases. We are very often in cafes and libraries and job centres, you name it, you'll probably find us somewhere.
Fantastic. And our final question is, do you ever have any of your service users that have used your services in the past that have actually returned to you as mentors, perhaps, to share their experiences?
So yeah, we now are taking on buddies, we call buddies. We've very often taken on young people for work experience placements here at the organisation, all of which have then gone on to do some really magic things and gone into employment. But we've not had a regular process of people coming back in, but now we do, and it's the Digi Dudley project is after buddies to go out and help people that are digitally excluded. What's interesting is many people that have got support from us have actually then gone on to, through our support, working in a similar environment with similar organisations. So yeah, that does happen, and we get people onto all sorts of things: information, advice and guidance, safeguarding training, mental wellbeing, and they do go into the industry. But we do have an inroad, although we've taken on young people for work experience placements in the past, we now have an inroad for all groups and adults, and that's on our Digi Dudley project. So if you know of anyone that wants to volunteer or come in to the organisation and gain some experience, or just find out more about what we do, please give us a call or drop us a line on email or through Facebook page. And anybody that is interested could become a Digi Dudley volunteer buddy with us. Notice there's a question in the chat as well. The government and media tell us there are job vacancies, but people aren't taking them up. Appreciate you dealing with people with chaotic lives, but once they're ready, is it quite easy to find a position? My experience tells me at the moment, yes, Barbara, that is not always the case, but from what we've seen over the last 6 to 8 weeks, it's a healthy, thriving employment market out there. Sam, what would you say?
Yeah, I would agree. We've seen many people getting into jobs, and then we've seen many people that were, you know, in the position where they had too many barriers to even consider work, and when we've worked through those barriers with them and created CVs with them and taught them how to job search and apply for work, then they're getting them too.
Yeah. I think that's the bit that is the ultimate goal. And actually, even in the pandemic, we saw many of our young people that had multiple barriers and issues feeling better and actually going into employment. Yes, it was supermarkets, or yes, it was that kind of work, but needless to say, it's a start and mean to an end, isn't it? And it has been quite a thriving 12 months from an employment opportunity point of view. Difficult with others around teens and mental well-being and older people that have experienced isolation and loneliness. But yeah, domestic violence was definitely on the increase, and we saw many more trends around DV throughout the pandemic. But employment has always been the more straightforward one, and yes, it's been quite healthy for the last 12 months. How do you look after each other's well-being, mental health, given the nature of the people you are helping as a team? That's a good question, Lou. I mean, Sam, what's it like to work at JST?
It's an absolutely great team, and everyone is so kind and patient. And anytime you might not know something, there's a colleague that does know about that area that's specific that you need. And anytime that you're feeling a bit, oh, this is getting a bit overwhelming, you just have a chat with someone, and that they let you know that they've been through the similar kind of thing, and they'll help you find a solution. And by the end of the chat, a cup of tea and a chat, you're feeling better. So it's very supportive.
Really good team, and they've all got a really good sense of humour, much better than my sense of humour. So I hear lots of laughter in the office, and it's all work and appropriate. And I think that's what helps get the day, within the day. But we do have, and we've had for 2 years now, a staff counselling line, and that's with Peninsula, and a staff 24/7 counselling line with 6 to 8 Zoom sessions through a private qualified counsellor. And I know that some staff have certainly used that over the last 12 months to 2 years and found it really beneficial. Those support mechanisms, we've all faced something, haven't we, ourselves, over the last 2 years? We've all felt something and felt different, maybe due to some of the issues around what the pandemic has created. And the work that we do, it can it's important we try and cut off, but not everybody can, and you can take it home with you. Majority of our staff here, luckily, have got that function to be able to switch off. But yeah, really good question, Lou. We have a great team that support each other, and that ability to cut off is really vital. Is there any more questions?
Okay.
Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. Thank you, Sam. That was an amazing presentation, incredibly powerful to hear the case study detail, the videos from people from your group. I've really enjoyed myself learning more about your work, and I hope everybody that's listening to the session now and at a later date will equally enjoy that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.